professor of sociology.
So I think that's been one of the most liberating things, like, as an academic.
Editor of the academic blog Cyborgology.
It's intimidating, like, it's totally intimidating. I get a rejection email, I can, like, quietly cry. I get a rejection tweet. That's, like, a whole other ballgame.
Studies on new media, social media, and the digital age.
That's why the starting point should be less about is it good or bad, because of course it's both.
Jenny Davis.
Foster dialogue and thoughtfulness and intellectual growth.
This is The Last Laugh.
No, I want to do it. Go hard, go home.
Hello, and welcome to The Last Laugh. I'm Mia Brabham, and this is a 10-episode podcast where I interview my favorite, most interesting professors, mentors, and super cool people, especially Jenny, during the last 10 days of my undergrad career here at JMU. These are all the questions I've ever wanted to ask them about their stories, the life lessons they've learned, their areas of study, and there's something new to learn in every episode for everybody out there listening. Today, I am here with Jenny Davis, professor of sociology, editor and blogger of the academic blog Cyborgology, and seriously just fun, smiley, hilarious person. I'm also joined today by some of the coolest and most thoughtful students from our sociology of new media class, Buddy Harlow, Noelle Go, and Jenna Clark. So without further ado, let's start the show.
Everyone's laughing at me. The reason we are here today is because Jenny Davis, as we call you, as the students call you. I'm honored right now and also intimidated because one time Jenny tweeted a picture that we took together in class, cried. Noelle turned to me and I was like, they can't see this is awkward, but it was great. We can hop in, I guess. Yeah. Did you always know / want to do sociology?
No. So, I was actually, when I was an undergraduate student, I was a communications major, and I was the kind of communications major that did public relations. And so I was in this PR class, which is very businessy, and I was in a sociology class at the same time. And I was learning very much the same things, but from different perspectives. So from the business side, I was sort of learning, here's how you trick people into buying your shit.
This is uncensored. I love podcasts.
And then in the sociology class, it was sort of here's how claims makers try to get you to buy their shit, right? And so I was I want to be on that team. And so then I just did and went on that team, on the sociology team.
I came in as a marketing major.
Did you? Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then once I started seeing what all marketing entailed, I was this feels very wrong. So I switched.
I don't like it.
Yeah, you want to get on the good team.
Yeah.
I love that.
For the annotated bibliography, I was oh, this one seems cool. And then I read the article probably 4 days later, and it cited you 4 times, and I was oh my gosh, I was freaking out.
Our professor's a celebrity, just so everyone knows. It's so cool because you do all these great, cool research, academic-based things, but you also, in addition to that, have a blog, which is awesome. So, what's it like to be producing content among other people who also are producing content and have this sort of digital voice? Is it intimidating? Is it empowering?
Okay, so the blog is Cyborgology, and it's an academic blog where we theorize technology and society. So I've been writing for them since 2011 or 2012, and then I took over editorship last year.
Oh, nice.
With David Banks, with somebody else. And so that's time-consuming, but awesome. So I actually think one of the best things about academia and the internet is that the publishing process can be much shorter and it doesn't have to be as high stakes. So the academic journal publishing process is tedious and can take I have something that's been in review that I have not gotten a review of in a year.
Wow.
For a year.
Uh-oh.
But you go on to a social media platform or a WordPress, essentially if you get on a WordPress, you can kind of type it up and then you're your own publisher. Also, you can enable comments and have conversation around it immediately. So instead of peer review and then publish, it's publish and then peer review. And also, you don't have to have a fully formulated idea. So I think that's been one of the most liberating things, as an academic, to have an outlet that I can put something out every week or every couple of weeks, or bring people in to say something interesting every couple of weeks and not have to go through this really dry, heavy review process that has a different kind of place. It's intimidating. It's totally intimidating because you're putting your stuff out there, and then all these, usually if I get rejected, the only people who see it are the reviewers who are this is not good. But now I put it out there and people tweet at me this was not good.
Oh! It's Mean Girls. else.
Same negative reinforcement, just a different medium.
Publicly shamed. Right, exactly. Like, I get a rejection email, I can, like, quietly cry. I get a rejection tweet. That's, like, a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, because you can respond back and start
Exactly.
fighting.
Yeah. You have to.
And you can't
respond
stop
back.
yourself.
Can you edit it?
Can I edit
I've
the
always
blog?
wondered, like, when you put something out, like, on a blog, like a professional blog,
Yeah.
can you go back and be like, oh, typo? That's a really small question. But I've always
that
wondered.
does happen. And yes, you can.
Okay, good to know. I always thought, like, envisioned it being like, I send this out into the professional world, and they're like, it's final. You must live with your mistake forever. And I'm like, no.
And
That's good
especially
to know.
like how quick like the internet is. So if someone sees that you misspelled something, they're like, oh well, she's not credible. She doesn't even know to spell apple or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, I have a story. So,
You tell.
so there's this guy. He's like tweet corrected my spelling on the blog, or like in the comments section. So then I'll have to like correct the thing, and then I have to like have this debate with myself. I'm like, do I leave the comment in? Because like, should the world know that I misspelled that initially? I don't. I delete it because the world doesn't need to know that.
Exactly.
But like one of the more embarrassing ones was like I was saying, it was like a long time ago. I was a graduate student, and I was like writing something about someone being on the lam, like they're like on the hideout from the law.
Mm-hmm.
But I spelled lamb like Mary had a little lamb.
That's what I
That, I was just
Right?
like, yeah,
No, so there's no B. For all of you, there's no B.
lamb.
It's on the
Okay.
lamb. So, but it wasn't like I just did it once and you could be like, oops, autocorrect. Like I had it like multiple times. And I got like publicly shamed for it, and so then I had to go in. So that was, so yeah, we totally misspell things.
Oh my goodness. So Buddy here wants to start an amazing podcast.
Love it.
He's the next superstar, so
Tell us, buddy.
pitch it, and then we want your advice on how to.
No pressure.
I want to do a podcast entitled 40 and 40, so it's a 40-minute long podcast.
Are you drinking 40?
Yes. Yeah, so
Incredible.
as like the 40 minutes progresses, you have to go through the bottle, and then I for some reason, like, I always have, like, very, very rich dialogue. Well, I think it's rich, but then again, I don't know too well. I usually have pretty rich dialogue with my friends when we're drinking because I'm not, like, someone who centers around, like, party culture. Like, let's go flip a car, like, smash beer cans on our heads. It's more like, let's talk about, like, things that I talk about in class. So, 40 and 40. It's going to happen.
So, have you seen the television program Drunk History?
No.
Yes. No,
Okay, I probably like
So
that.
your first bit of homework is to watch Drunk History. So the premise is, do you
Watch
know
it
the host's
sober,
name?
right?
Yeah,
I don't.
You don't have to watch it sober, but But so I can't remember the host's name, but they basically it's this host, and he gets with a celebrity, and the celebrities, and he gets them wasted, and he gets wasted with them, and the celebrity's job is to recount a historical event. And so they've like clearly done research, like they do a really good job. As they're telling the story, people are also reenacting the thing, like as they say. So when people will be like, I forgot, then some of the actors will say like, I forgot.
I think one...
Wait, so I have a question.
Yeah.
From one lightweight to, well, not. Are you a lightweight?
Hmm?
Like when you like drink, is this allowed?
Yeah, is this allowed?
Anything's
Okay,
allowed.
so anyway, are we sharing the 40?
No.
Or
No, each
Everyone
person
gets
has
a
a 40 of them.
no way. I would be
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, well, I should probably find a way to make it like more inclusive, like to where I don't like tell someone like, hey, you have to be verging on like alcohol poisoning before we can do something. So yeah, I gotta work out the kinks, but it'll be.
That'd be great. I really want to watch Drunk History.
Would
now.
you do the 40 and
Do what?
40?
Would I do the 40 and 40? That's an
What,
I kind of feel like she asked if I would do the 40 and 40. So on premise, yes, but I kind of feel like my days of drinking 40 is behind me. I feel like I've like
Yo, you're
crossed that
never
precipice.
too good for a Mickey's. You're never too good for a
I'm
Mickey's.
certainly not too good, but I might be too old.
Okay.
So what would you say, like a piece of advice to someone about to or wanting to have a voice on a digital medium?
Do it, but build some calluses. So like, I mean, you know me, I'm sure you could speak to this, so you probably just get mostly love, but like.
Oh, I've gotten so many. I've gotten
get
a lot
some
of hate. I get some hate.
Yeah.
So like, yeah,
Yeah,
feels
it's
good.
good.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what else you gonna say?
better.
Yeah.
Like it feels kind of good, right?
Yeah, it
Even when they
does.
hate you, you're like, all right,
You're
like
like,
that means I'm saying something, I'm doing this, right? So like, I would say absolutely do it. Take the time to learn the technical skills because you don't want to you want to put stuff out there that's good. You want your voice to be heard as clearly as possible. So learn the technical skills, do your research, and build some calluses because people are kind of mean sometimes.
Dang.
It's
Jenny
alright.
just spit fire.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question, and we can also jump in on this. I'll move on. What's the biggest misconception about new media?
Ooh.
Do you think?
That it's making us lonely. I think, that it's making us lonely and making us stupid. And so, for some people, certainly it can contribute to loneliness. It can hinder thoughtfulness, but it can also help people connect, and it can also foster dialogue and thoughtfulness and intellectual growth. And so I think it's easy to be kind of afraid of technological advancements, and it feels, I think, scary. So I think people, when they say it's making us dumb, it's making us lonely, are taking maybe a general fear that they have and finding a place to put it. And that's kind of an easy place because it's new and we're not quite sure what to make of it yet.
Yeah.
Or the misconception that we're becoming addicted to it. It's more so, it's just, we're adapting, we're having it adapt to our lifestyle. We as humans have this weird tendency to just we take things way too extreme. So with media, if we're given a new media, a new type of technology, we go straight, we just keep using it until we no longer can handle it. And so I think I was gonna go somewhere. Someone help! Someone please send in a lifesaver.
I feel like the older generations and stuff like that, there's just a natural pushback just because they didn't grow up with that. And so they're like, oh, I did all this stuff without that. I walked uphill both ways to school, which doesn't make any damn sense.
Congratulations.
But yeah, there's that natural pushback.
We are coming out from the generation where everyone's technology is bad, to the generation where everyone's just immersing themselves in technology. So we're us, as this age group, we're just stuck. And sort of because we think about what other people are thinking, we're always swayed in different directions. Especially whenever someone's oh, I'm gonna cut myself out from technology because I'm better than everyone else. I'm gonna just cut myself off and go off and live in the thing. Yeah, right?
IRL fetish in real life.
Right?
I love that saying in that article.
Nathan Jurgensen, he's the one who started the blog that I run now.
Oh my gosh, forward this to him. We love you. We love you.
Thank you so much.
But one article I really liked, and I can't recall the exact name of it. Basically, the article was saying the norm of how we think the best form of communication is face-to-face. But why? Why does it have to be the norm for some people who can't do that effectively or don't know how or would rather do it? Why is it a bad thing to have to say something through text or because they can't do that? Some people have disabilities and can't do certain things, so it's not fair to place a norm. And that's what I liked about the whole perspective I've gotten from the class too, is that it helps marginalized voices and people not everyone is the same. Not everyone's the same. It's cool. Except for it's not all equal. Learn that too. It's not all equal. There's still some places that don't have access to it, which, yeah. And that was interesting in the last time. I know I'm just rambling, but in the last class, the article about how access is not always about oh, I have it in my home. It's about the amount of connectedness. If someone can't afford or can't have the ability to get to internet easily, then obviously their experience with internet or with technology is not going to be equal to someone who can get Wi-Fi really fast, and then that also makes inequality and that sort of divide. But yeah,
this must be a proud moment for you because you're seeing your students just apply everything that they learned in your class into the real world and become more enlightened.
This is really my dream come true.
Yes.
I hope I said. Sometimes I feel I don't say words right. So the idea, I know in one of my interviews we had to do an assignment where we interviewed a peer and then someone over 50 on just basic questions on technology, and it was whether we think social media is a good thing or a bad thing, and she goes, it's good, but I'm constantly thinking, what part of my day do I have to filter to not hurt, affect, negatively impact someone else's life? She goes, so now if I with my friends and I go, you can't tweet this because they'll know that I'm here and not there. It's what do you think about the negative sides of social media?
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. So there's this idea of techno-utopianism, oh, technology is what saves us. I'm for sure not on that side either, right? And so I think one of the problems with the technophobia. Troubles of technophobia is that when you fight back against it, you like end up sounding like, well, everything about technology is great, but that's of course not the case. Like, of course there are circumstances under which it makes you lonely. Of course there are moments of anxiety brought about by the technology. Of course there's inequality that's perpetuated by the technology. Like, we live in an unequal society. Of course we're going to see that play out and sometimes get worse when we add a new communication medium to it. Like, of course, the technology that we make, though it does make help people with disabilities or people with social anxiety, also can be really inaccessible to people with disabilities. Like, most sites are only retroactively fitted for people with deafness, blindness, whatever. And so that's why the starting point should be less about is it good or bad, because of course it's both, and more about how does it operate, whose interest does it serve, and what is it afford and constrain. And so that's kind of sort of the, I think, more important message than like good, bad, helpful, unhelpful.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, so could you talk about digital dualism, our favorite thing?
Okay, so digital dualism is separation of physical and digital as though they're two separate realms. With a clear preference for physical, the presumption that physical is somehow more real, connected often with words like cyber, virtual, online, as just opposed to offline, as though they could either one of those could exist without the other. And so the flip side of that, like the preferred way of thinking, at least from my perspective and from Nathan Jorgensen's perspective in the blog I write for, is augmented, which understands physical and digital as enmeshed as part of as different components of the same reality, right? So like what you do online, air quotes, right, is also affected by and affects what happens in meat space.
Yeah. I love that, and I love the one discussion we had in class. But I think it was Buddy, and he was talking about, he was like if you're at a concert and your face is in a phone, then you're not really at the concert, and you were like, hold up, you were literally at the concert.
Yes.
Because it's the same thing. Like it's not interchangeable. It's obviously different mediums, like physical and like looking at something is different, but you're still there. You're in that space, and the same thing goes with like friendships. Like I do YouTube, and so it's a community, and like people that I would talk to when I was younger making videos like online, like we've met up in real life, and like when she visits, like we hang out, and like it's real friendships. It's not fake online friendships. Like these are people that I talk to.
Online,
yeah, and so it's like I never thought about that before, because sometimes I make comments like thinking about it, like or not thinking about it, being like, yeah, you're like on your phone, you aren't really looking, or like you aren't really there, and like yeah, I can like divert your attention a little bit, but it doesn't change the fact that you're like in that space with these people.
Right, you are in that space, and you can be rude on your phone. Like like if right now any of us like had our phones out and we're like busy with other things, it wouldn't make the situation less real. It would just make the situation more rude.
Yeah.
So like it's not that one's real and one's not, and it's not that you can't have manners with it, but the idea that like what's happening mediated through a screen is somehow fake is like silly.
It is,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
No, I was at a concert in Richmond a few weeks ago, and this lady, because I wanted to document it. It's my first ever concert ever. Okay, well, I went to a One Direction concert, but we never mentioned that, but now everyone's gonna know. Anyway, so I documented it once.
What was the concert?
It was once. It was Beirut.
Oh,
Yeah,
good one. Okay.
love them. And so I was just documenting it. And this lady behind me, who's a little bit older, and she goes, "Get off your phone. You're not living right now. You're not living." I was like, "How am I not living? How am I not enjoying this concert? I am enjoying this concert. I just happen to want to document it through my source of technology."
I'm not enjoying you nagging me behind
Yes,
me.
exactly. And I was like, "I apologize if it's taking away from your experience, but this is my experience as well, and you can just move to the side and watch." Yep.
And one thing, oh my gosh, do not hate me for this, because we don't like Turkle. I will say I don't like her stances on a lot, but there's one thing she said that I liked. I don't know how you feel about it, and she was like, sometimes we choose people on our phones over the people right in front of us.
Absolutely.
And I love that one bit, just not her whole ideology, but that one bit. I was like, damn, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, and I think that's the rudeness piece, like generally. So
Yeah.
So I've also seen, generally, it's rude if you're with people to be paying attention to anything else. Like, it would be rude if I was here with you reading a book. You'd be like, like we made plans to be together. What
Yeah.
are you doing? That's rude. Or like watching television or whatever. Like that's rude. Why are you distracted with someone who's not there? And so like yes, sometimes we do. Sometimes, and agreed. Like I agree with you, Sherry Sharkle. We do that sometimes, and that's rude, and we shouldn't. But that's not the technology's fault.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like it's not technology's fault. And, so, you know, on the blog, Whitney Aaron Basil wrote a piece a while back about how, as a teenager, her phone was a form of resistance with family. So she felt like her family was not a mentally healthy crew. She felt a little bit oppressed by her family, essentially. And so she sort of talked about how it would have been kind of helpful for her to have an outlet, like during family dinners, if she could have paid attention to the people in her phone instead of the people she was around, that would have been comforting to her in a time where she was like in a lot of emotional tumult. So it's complicated, but yeah, Trickle's got a point on that one.
Yeah, I love that. What you just said. I can't talk. But what is your position? We sort of talked at the end of class, but your position on surveillance, because we read in articles about wanting to talk more about it. I was just curious.
It's so tough. So it can be really empowering through what we talk about as like surveillance, right? So watching the watchers. So like I think one of the most powerful things we've seen in the last few years has been cameras on cops. So and we saw it first with the Occupy movement and then with Black Lives Matter, and I think that's been huge to hold figures of authority accountable. We all have little devices in our hands that let us do that now. That's a big deal. At the same time, our data is no longer our own. And so we can all pretty safely assume that as we move through the activities of daily life, whatever else we're doing, we're leaving traces behind that are picked up by potentially government operatives, but more likely people who want to sell us shit again, right? So the technology has outpaced regulatory law in that sense. And so I think what I think about surveillance is that we're over-surveyed and we don't quite have an infrastructure in place yet to protect privacy. And so it's really like we're in a moment of scramble right now. That's what we're seeing.
No, it's interesting because like when my group and I were meeting for our paper, and I noticed, I think one of the other group members noticed that there were like little stickies on the cameras of laptops, the girls. And they happen to be sociology majors. And he was just like, why do you have that? And they said, well, because, someone could be watching us. And I was like,
people can hack into your camera and be like, well,
I wondered and I assumed, I was never sure. This is a nugget of
I was like, you guys are like paranoid, whatever. And then they mentioned the fact that all of the apps that say, oh, we're going to use your profile to do this, but we won't post anything. Apparently, they can have access to your camera on your phone, which is...
Like Facebook.
like we need to look this up.
Like
next
Facebook
area of research.
Like
Facebook Messenger, like there's like a I don't know, the message pops up and you're like, I agree to these terms.
Of course,
And so like you're like, oh, this isn't bad, like get talk to my friends and like they can see your stuff and you're just like,
see your
what?
stuff. What if I'm in bed, snuggled up in a blanket, looking like a burrito, and I'm just looking at my phone and someone's gonna see me going, oh my gosh, there it is. It's
This is weird.
And then we alluded to 1984.
Be like,
Big Brother's watching.
Yeah, Big Brother's watching.
And I don't remember if it was an article we read. I'm starting to confuse all that. I don't know if it was something we read on our own for our paper or whether it was one of the articles that we had to read for an assignment. But one of them talked about identity and like especially in youth and how they're sort of building like the internet is good because you can build like sort of you research and you see things and you kind of like accumulate all this to like sort of cultivate who you are. And so like by them knowing, I guess to a certain extent, like you do want to keep like youth safe, but like to a certain extent, like being over surveyed, am I saying that right? Surveyed, it's sort of like it hinders their ability to feel like they can freely assess who they are. I don't know if we read that, or is that am I just not?
No, I think that's the thing. That's the thing that people talk about is sort of like if you're always watched, you're sort of always acting as though you're always watched.
Yeah.
And so you can't you don't have freedom of expression. I mean, I would say that's probably true to an extent, but I think kids are always and have been watched.
I'm gonna flip this on its head now because we talked about our discussion, but this is like really random. What's the biggest life lesson you've learned? just in general.
Oh.
Let's flip it outwards. Life.
Love that.
Life, the biggest life lesson. Oh gosh.
No pressure.
Maybe you can say like a recent life lesson you've learned, because we're always learning.
So okay, well, so here's one that I'm like, I feel like I know this lesson, and then one that I'm continuously learning
I
and
love
failing
that.
to learn. So the one that I've learned is like the best way to be a functioning, like the most effective way to be a functioning adult and to succeed at the things you want to succeed at are to recognize that most of the time you have to do things you don't feel like doing. Most of what you do every single day is stuff you don't feel like doing, and you just have to get in there and do it and get it done. And then there's like a fraction of like the stuff like this that's fun and rewarding and meaningful to you. But like to get there, you have to just constantly like, I don't feel like doing this, and I'm gonna grind down and do it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like
for me.
that's college. Yeah, we have to learn.
College.
Like, you
Like,
just-
I don't want to do this paper. I have an 8-page paper due.
Ooh.
I don't want it on government.
Don't wanna do
subsidies.
it.
I
Oh.
don't want to do it. But you know what's 20% of my grade? And
Right.
I've got to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then what's the recent life?
So the recent life lesson that I'm just continuing to learn is that patience and flexibility have to constantly be practiced. That no matter what, you can't bull your way through things. That's sort of a general. You can't bull your way through things. Patience and adaptability will get you through most things, but they're also the hardest things to capture.
Constant challenge.
Yes.
Dun-dun-dun. So, I call this the speed, not so speed round.
So
Okay.
excited.
These are questions for you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like they're very brief, short questions, and they're fun, but they're like big questions. Like you're gonna have to like dig
Dig deep.
deep for them. But they're so fun. I always say, do your instinct. Like if it's the reason that comes to your mind, say it. But if not, if you can think about it too. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Favorite moment of undergrad?
Favorite moment of undergrad was when I met my husband. So I walked into a sociology class. I remember like the day. So I was wearing this like weird headband and like giant hair. For sure hadn't showered.
College.
And so I like sat next to him. And we like talked a little. We ended up in the same group. We ended up dating in college, going to grad school together. Got married actually in this semester. Well, like a drop. So we had decided we weren't going to get married until it was legal for everybody to get married.
That's awesome.
And so we like went by the courthouse on like a random Friday afternoon and just got married.
I'm crying this semester. Oh my god. Congratulations. Okay, moving on. Your favorite moment at JMU?
Oh gosh. I mean, this is like among my top 10 right now. This is a good one.
Okay, other than this
We already know that. Yeah.
Last semester, actually, I had this wonderful moment. It was towards the beginning of the semester. We did like a big gender discussion about the social construction of sex and gender.
Yeah.
And there was this kind of like fight in the class, like way
those
more
are the
vicious than I
best.
would have expected about like the naturalness of male and female. And I was like feeling really terrible about it because I was like, oh my gosh, people in the class could have gotten hurt by that. Like, you know, I don't know who was in the classroom when we're having this discussion. But then I had like several students afterwards who like were either genderqueer, nonconformist, say that it was really meaningful for them. And then one of the biggest like fighters on the other side at the end of the semester wrote this like really long letter essentially saying like how she had changed and was more open-minded.
Wow.
And like how her classmates had like really kind of flipped her view. And I was like, okay, it was okay.
See, that's why like learning and education, especially like a classroom, is just so powerful.
And for a professor, it's just for a teacher, for an educator to see that,
Yeah.
to see that change, the positive impact, incredible.
It was really cool.
Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. Heart song, your heart song. So this is not your favorite song. It's like you in a song, you as a song. It's a song that encapsulates who you are.
Oh shoot.
It's really hard. I mean, in my internship this semester, I asked everyone in the car on the way up to DC, and they got back to me like the last trip, so last week. So it took like 4 months.
Yeah.
Well, maybe something One Direction. I really like it. I don't know. It
Yes.
just makes my heart happy.
Mine
Respect
is
that.
Montana by Youth League. The one that line always is I will grow, and it's just continues to grow. I love it.
That's so like deep, and I'm just like, no, that's One Direction or like Backstreet Boys or something.
No, it doesn't have to be
It doesn't
deep.
It
It doesn't have to be deep.
I mean, I have to think about that one. That's a tough one.
It's hard. Okay,
Wait,
think
what's
about
yours?
it. Get back to me. Mine is you only get what you give by the New Radicals.
Ooh, good one.
My second one is like you make my dreams come true because I just
Oh,
I also love Vienna by Billy Joel, but I can't get into that. Okay, so your cry song, the song that you cry to that makes you cry.
oh gosh. Do you know, like, anytime I hear Whitney Houston anything, I'm just like, oh. Like, it doesn't even, the lyrics are irrelevant. It's just the power of her voice.
I love that.
You can just feel her. Yeah.
All right, a moment you felt most alive.
Gosh, these are so good.
So it's speed, not so speed round.
I know. What? Okay, so this seems like really stupid.
No, nothing stupid. Nothing.
Nothing stupid.
You have to say
Nothing.
this is a secret.
Yeah. Safe space.
Place.
Sort of.
Just don't make the
Yeah,
comments.
just yeah. Ignore the comments.
Nothing is silly. I love it.
Well, so, okay, well, so the like one thing that's been like super. So okay, so one. I remember I said ever.
Sorry, that thing is just ridiculous.
Whoa.
The water fountain.
The water fountain's loud, and also there's like crazy lightning going on outside.
This is so
Amazing.
great. I love it.
So okay, so one of my dogs I said was like off the walls. So this dog actually is like the ultimate of all rescue dogs, like beyond rescue, like. But we're just now getting to the point where we can introduce him to people. And it's been like years, like him, like nobody can really come in our house or anything without like a serious like preparation. And so we've recently been able to like on the street, someone like has like recently like come up to us, which is like a big thing for him, and he just sort of like was calm about it. I was like, oh, we made it.
That's awesome. That is I love that.
Oh,
I was so drawn into that story. So how do you overcome fear?
Just do it. Just jump in.
Yes.
Like just jump in and do it. 'Cause it's never scary once you're there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. If you weren't a professor, what would you be?
Ooh. Okay. So I think I would either be an improv comic, but no one else thinks I would be that because other people don't think I'm as funny as I think I am. My cousin actually is an improv comic, but like on the side. So either that or the more boring route is I feel like it could have been like a dietitian or a nutritionist or some sort of like physical trainer or something, health person, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
But I prefer the improv comic.
I love it. We can help.
would go,
We
yeah.
can make a video, we can pitch
Tell us a
it.
joke right now.
Your best joke, go.
Yeah, no pressure.
It's too much pressure. It's too much pressure.
So if you could win an award for anything, what would you want to win?
That's one of my favorite places.
His hair?
Women.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
For those of you who can't see, Jenny's hair is so beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's like,
What was your senior superlative?
What is
Yes.
your superlative?
I did have a senior superlative.
What was it?
Wait, can you guess? What would you, if you just guessed what my
Best
senior
hair.
Best hair? No. My friend Nicole Cologne had best hair, and it is the best hair.
I don't know. The person to bring home to your parents? Is that?
Oh no,
I
but
can
that's a
see
good
that.
one. But no. But I did win the award for most huggable.
Oh.
I like that.
I like that.
That's so. Is that your?
That was
You
my
would want to
senior
win it again.
I'd want to win it round 2. as
Round
an
2,
adult.
Jenny Davis, best hugger. And who would you think your acceptance speech for that?
I would thank all the people who allowed me to hug them
Yeah.
affectionately and by surprise.
Thank you,
so
Erica.
Exactly.
And the last question: one piece of advice for every college kid going out into the world in one word only. One word.
I feel like I have 2 words.
Everyone, you get one. Okay, I'll give you a pass.
Okay.
I'll give you a pass.
No, I want to do it. Go hard or go home. That's not advice. That's other advice. But I can do it in 1 word. Run. That's
Just like full open
Just
arms,
go.
full force.
Yep. Open
Just
arms, open eyes, open heart. Get there.
Run with full abandon. What is that from? I feel like it's from a quote from a play. I don't, either way. But-
Tumblr.
Thank you, Tumblr.
Feel good about it.
It applies to a lot.
Jenny commits. She commits. She's like,
Run, Mia, run.
I'm gonna run.
Wait, your water bottle says "Girl on the Run."
Yeah.
Folks, for anybody who's listening.
But it's On the Run because that's the movie I made last semester. That's fun.
Wait, you made the movie called On the Run?
Yeah, it was like a thriller, psychological
She
thriller.
wrote it. It was really amazing.
Really?
She's
Like for a class or just like as
It's
part
for
of your
class.
Mm-hmm.
It was like our seniors, basically our senior project. So it was
Everyone is just so cool.
awesome.
I need to get on your level.
You're right
You're
there.
I want to get on. You're there. Run. Just kidding.
I need to run.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Professor Jenny Davis, you rock. And Buddy. And Buddy.
And Mia.
She's great. I'm not that cool. Woo!
Well, hello again, and thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something new today, or at least got a little bit of food for thought. Subscribe for more podcasts and for other stories and content. If you're listening on YouTube or Facebook, leave a comment to answer any of the takeaway questions in the description. I am so excited for the ones this week. They're going to be really, really interesting to read, and they might just be my favorite so far. Finally, find me on Twitter and Instagram at yourstrulymia_, and let's be friends. Tune in to the next episode with Rusty Green, beloved SMAT professor, to find out the secret to great storytelling and to hear about On the Run, which is a student film that I helped create last semester and was mentioned at the end of this episode. It's sure to be an amazing time. Thanks again for listening, and remember, the best learning happens inside and outside the classroom. This is The Last Lap, and until next episode, in the words of Jenny herself, gotta run. The Last Lap is produced and edited by Mia Brabham, music by Brian Kim.